All right, we're going live in a few seconds. We are good. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, May 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m. We are in the Brecksville Broadview Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville, Ohio. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as an indicated agenda item. This meeting will be live streamed via YouTube and will also be recorded for later viewing. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where all recordings are posted. Item 1B, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1C, roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Mack, Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, Kathleen is not able to join us this evening. Item 2, President's announcements. First and foremost, if you have not heard already, we did hire a new superintendent. We approved the contract on Monday. His name is Jeff Harrison. Communications went out. And so we congratulate Jeff and look forward to his arrival August 1st. Also, we were made aware that Terry Neff passed away. She was a BBH board member from 2000 until 2010. She also served as a CVCC board member. She won OSBA's Award of Achievement 5 times and earned the distinction of Master Board Member. She served as a PTA president and council member and as the district school issues committee treasurer, 3 levy committee campaign co-chairs. She passed away on Sunday. She had 3 boys who went through the district. So our condolences to Terry Neff's family and friends. Moving on to item 3B, board appointed reports. I reached out to Mr. Gilbride and there is no new updates. He was here last month and gave us the CBCC update. No new updates on that front. Item 4A, superintendent committee reports. Financial liaison audit committee, Kathleen and I, we have no updates on that. Permanent improvement committee, Ellen and myself.
I don't know that we have any updates, but there are some permanent improvement issues coming up on the agenda in a few minutes.
Yes, our favorite topic, roofing, will be on the agenda. Always have roofing work scheduled, it seems. Board policy committee, Kathleen and Tish.
Nothing new. We just have our final reading of several policies this evening.
Transportation Appeals Committee, myself, there are no appeals and have not been all year. So we're almost over the finish line. Hopefully we don't get any in the last few days of school. Safety and security meeting, Brittany and Tish.
Yes, there was a safety and security meeting held on May 4th. Lots and lots of information. So Ms. Wigman, help me out if I miss anything. But the gist of the meeting is that there will be upcoming evacuation and reunification drills at all of the buildings. So they will occur within the next couple of weeks. The middle school and the high school will utilize, and parents, I believe, are going to be made aware, and community members will be made aware of the reunification, the evacuation procedures, which will feed into the community surrounding the buildings here, the elementary school, when they do their reunification drill. That will be in June, early June, and they're only going to practice reunification with 2 classrooms. So high school and middle school will reunify the entire building, but elementary, we're only going to have 2 classrooms. So parents, be on the lookout for that information. Community members, be on the lookout for that information if you reside in the surrounding neighborhoods here. Did I cover it all?
You're good.
Good.
Okay, schools foundation report, Brittany.
I have one update. The Schools Foundation has, or is, I suppose, pleased to present, 3 new Schools Foundation members. Carrie Ely, Denise Gowlick, and Christy Crouch are joining the Schools Foundation. So they'll be joining the next meeting and we'll be off to the races. I'm sure, as many are aware, these individuals have been instrumental in some of our district's larger initiatives, specifically related to the middle school auditorium project. So they are coming with an abundance of backing from a worker bee perspective and vision, and a way to see through that vision. So very excited to have these 3 individuals joining the group.
Wonderful. PSO report, Ellen.
So from the PSO, apparently after prom was successful. It was at Topgolf. Approximately 122 students attended. Thanks to the volunteers and Mr. Jacob for coming. The elementary school is preparing for end of the year activities. They're organizing field day, Kona Ice Day for staff, and end of the year parties. And the PSO Council recognized Friends of the Month at the meeting earlier this month. The elementary school recognized Michael Cafaro, the middle school recognized Gail Woznicki, and the high school recognized the transportation team, meaning everyone who's been involved in getting the high school students to and from school safely, including the Brecksville and Broadview Heights Police Departments, in light of all the changes at the high school and the middle school entrances this school year. And the council recognized and thanks Mrs. Magyar for all her work on behalf of the PSO. The last PSO meeting of the school year is on Thursday, June 1st at 9:30, right here.
Great. Item 5, superintendent's announcements. Turn it over to Joelle.
Good evening. Just wanted to share some very preliminary testing data. As you know, we took our state test, and now that everything is online, we get the results back much quicker than we have in the past. So our math, science, and social studies results came back on May 17th. Our ELA, which is our English language arts test results, came back on May 22nd. So this is hot off the presses. It's not going to be released publicly yet because there is a process by which all districts have to go through in scrubbing the data. And what that means is that kids' scores only count if they've been with us for a certain number of days. So we have to go through and make sure that kids are charged back to districts where they came from, or they are indeed our kids. And then once that data is scrubbed, the state will release all of it. But just thought we would give you some highlights. As you recall, we started school late this year. So we started after Labor Day. So we had 3 less weeks of instruction time prior to state testing this year. We had nearly 100% participation on all of our tests, which is great. The vast majority of tests, the students scored in the same or better than they did last year. And our 3rd grade scores for this year, I know there was concerns about, class size and whether kids would do well on class tests. On their test, 3rd graders scored 84% proficient. It's the 2nd highest score since 2018 that they have scored in reading this year. And so very proud of those scores. In 10 of the 22 testing areas, we did better than we did back in 2022. In 5 out of the 22 areas, we did the same. And we have 7 that were slightly lower, but in all areas met the state requirements. So we are in line to have probably the highest performance index that we've had in the school's history since they've started the performance index. So kudos to our kids and to our staff and to our teachers and to our families and our administration for just having a great year of successful academics for our kids. Secondly, just a reminder, if you have high school kids, or even if you don't, just to come and watch, we have the boat regatta that is going on at the Brecksville Community Center. The physics class, Brady can probably talk more about this than I can, but they have to build boats with cardboard and using duct tape only, and then race across the pool. It's very fun. If you've never seen it, I suggest if you have some time to come and watch it. Kids have a great time, and it is all about learning. And our senior awards are tomorrow evening, where we're going to be awarding several of our seniors millions of dollars in scholarships that they have all earned, and honoring and recognizing some outstanding seniors next year. So looking forward to that as well.
Joelle, I might have missed it. Can you repeat when the boat regatta is?
It is Friday at 10:30 in the morning at the Brecksville Community Center.
Thank you.
Senior awards are tomorrow at the high school auditorium at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Item 6, treasurer's announcements. Correct.
I will save my comments for the 5-year forecast later.
All right, wonderful. Item 7, hearing of the public. Do we have some? I assume anybody, while I'm reading this narrative, anybody who wants to speak, you have to fill out a form and then you'll be called up. Okay, so hearing of the public. Persons wishing to address the Board of Education may do so at this point. No formal action will be taken on subjects that are not included on this agenda until the board has had an opportunity to study them. Comments regarding personnel must be submitted in writing through the office of the superintendent. In order for the board to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient manner and to provide sufficient opportunities for members of the public to be heard, hearing of the public shall be limited to a maximum of 60 minutes, during which each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. So just as a reminder, this is not a question and answer or dialogue with the board. Those wishing to make comments, you state your name and your address, you make your comments. Please try to wrap it up within 3 minutes. If there's questions in there, we're not going to respond. So that needs to happen offline. And if everybody could just be respectful of the person giving the comments, and I will put a timer on and give you kind of a heads up when your time is running out. So if you're starting to run a little long, if you could just wrap it up when you hear the timer go off, that would be much appreciated. All right, I think Craig's
Great.
gonna call up our,
Yes, Brady Borkwin, if you could just make sure, because you're the first one to make sure you push the button so the green light turns on. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Deal. All right. Brady Borgwin, 8385 Sunnydale Drive in Brecksville. And I'm here tonight to speak to you about our students and the opportunities that they deserve during their time here in our district. As a classroom teacher in this district for 9 years, and more importantly, a father to 3 little girls, I'm telling you that our students are the best kids that I have had the opportunity to interact with in my lifetime. They yearn for the best. They are driven for success, and they have historically performed wonderfully on behalf of this district in the classroom, on the stage, on the field of play, and in life beyond our walls. They have done this because our district has a history of providing our students with the tools to become productive members of our community after graduation. Yet it seems sometimes we have chosen to make cuts to those opportunities. We cut their opportunity to play sports and participate in clubs by requiring exceptionally high pay to participate fees. We've cut the ability to engage fully in their classroom teachers by increasing classroom sizes. And we've said that I understand this doesn't necessarily seem to affect their academic achievement, but when we look back and measure the success of our students, academic achievement will occur as a result of the relationships that they develop with their teachers and their peers, and because of the opportunities that we provide them, not at the bare minimum state standards, but to the level of our community's expectations. We have cut their ability to play and interact with their peers actively in their phys ed classes in the recess. And if we are truly dedicated to the social and emotional health of our students, we need to get them back into an active lifestyle, learning to engage each other in safe, productive ways in clubs, sports, phys ed, music, art. We don't need content instructors and specialists being asked to discuss healthy relationships. Let our math teachers teach math. Let our science teachers teach science. My first grade daughter needs another 50-minute recess each week, not a 50-minute lesson on when it's appropriate to tattle. We continuously discuss cutting the academic options that help to provide for the full experience that makes our students prepared for life beyond the classroom in a manner that is far superior to their peers. We've cut accountability in our students. They want structure. They want expectations, no matter what they tell us. And I understand that reversing cuts and avoiding those in the future is difficult and requires difficult conversations and lofty expectations. But isn't that what we expect from our students? To take on difficult challenges and set their expectations on being the best. It's time to focus on what is right for our students. And I'm telling you that what they need to be their best is smaller class sizes, to work more closely with their peers and teachers, the opportunity to participate in clubs and athletics without the limiting factor of their family's financial situation, and to focus on the social and emotional health in appropriate ways through play and physical activity. 20-minute recesses aren't doing it. We are here to prepare our students for their future. It's about them. It's not about us. It's not about our personal pride, our personal agendas, our personal
10
desire to
seconds.
be right. This is about making sure that each of our kids is ready for what comes next. And if we work together to focus on teaching and learning, give them every opportunity that we can and that they deserve beyond what we think is possible, they're going to be amazing, just like they are today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Patrick Mantalon.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Martelon. I reside at 7710 Winding Way in Brecksville. It's a hard act to follow. Yeah, it's a hard act to follow. I know Brady to be a wonderful man. I wish I could be as good as him. So interestingly enough, my son Preston's here tonight, fulfilling a Boy Scout project, and he emailed a board member. This was not part of this was not what I was going to talk about. But he actually had to pick an agenda item or something that he cared about. He thought needed to be improved in the school system, and his topic was additional recess time and activity, because I think that is something that boys in particular need to release some of their energy. All kids need that outlet. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to piggyback on what Brady had to say. So, I guess I'd like to thank the district. I came here to start by thanking the district for erring on the side of caution on April 14th and doing what they did. I think that's, appreciated by the parents, that, if there was a potential threat, to err on the side of caution is appreciated. That event then made me assess some things and take a look around. I guess that I had been things maybe in the back of my mind that I hadn't thought about before. I am here tonight to express my opinion that the middle school and high school, in my opinion, are not adequately hardened, and there are some obvious safety concerns. It's my understanding that parents are no longer part of the school safety committee. If that's misinformation, I'm happy to be corrected, but that's my understanding. And I think that's not good. That does not provide transparency or place the most important stakeholders at the table. I'd like to implore the district to restore the concept of parental rights above all, or in all the district's policies. The district should not be teaching curriculum that is contrary to the concept or teaching curriculum that is at odds with the values of parents. So today was I had planned to speak at the board meeting, but there were some issues today that made that even more challenging for me. I spoke to the board in the past specifically about the universal mental health screener and asked that be an opt-out, really actually that it should be an opt-in. I have opted out of that for both my children. My 8th grade daughter was administered the screener today in error. I spoke to Mr. Rings, so I understand it's not their fault. It's not Mr. Rings' fault. It's not the middle school's fault. It's an unfortunate circumstance. It's probably not the end of the world, but it puts my child in a difficult position.
If you could wrap up your comments.
It puts me in a difficult position. And I think it highlights the need for an opt-in as a fail-safe versus an opt-out. Okay. I have quite a few more items on my list.
We do meet next month again. So,
Yep.
You're well over 3 minutes. So respectfully, if you could conclude your comments.
Absolutely. So then I'll conclude by saying this: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Thank you for your comments.
Jan Lucas.
Hello, I'm Jan Lucas, and I've been told when I've spoken here before that I don't speak loudly enough, so I'm going to get the mic closer to me today. I live at 7684 Winding Way. And as evidenced at the last board meeting, there's a great passion in our community about what actions to take to benefit and to protect children in Brecksville Broadview Heights schools. The hyper-sensational social trends in our culture need to be counterbalanced by reasoned action and enforcement by a strong Board of Education policy and administrative leadership. Many sensibilities of people with different viewpoints were being affected at that meeting. However, it's troubling to find that there are parents, teachers, and students who are self-censoring for fear of retribution. That causes anxiety and turmoil in the schools also. Somehow, I'm not convinced that love and understanding and suicide prevention are the only motives behind some political activists within a community group that claim they are not influencing the schools and yet promoting a pride fest at the last board meeting. In their words, quote, "We are especially focused on cultivating this environment for the benefit of the youth of our community," unquote. When that's accompanied by school staff who allow gender-related symbols, sharing personal pronouns, administering suggestive surveys that exploit impressionable children, all of these are alienating, divisive, and needless distractions to true education. I get it that the board and administration fear lawsuits because of gender identity now being considered a protected class. But maybe Brecksville Broadview Heights needs to fund and construct single-use facilities. Or maybe a lawsuit that protects those who are victimized by the discomfort of using sexless bathrooms or pronoun selection or gender, sex and gender flags throughout the school is necessary. All this seems so trivial and wrong-headed. Identity politics, and staff promotion of implicit or explicit gender topics is irrelevant to academic excellence. I want us please to return to teaching critical thinking without inserting emotional intelligence nonsense in our schools. Brecksville Broadview Heights deserves truth, transparency in our education, not destructive social activism training. I hope and pray that our new leadership will harness the Brecksville Broadview Heights community to bring us together, dedicated to academic excellence. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Keith Richardson.
Ready?
We're ready.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Keith Richardson. I live at 5445 Valley Parkway in Brecksville. I wanted to speak today to ensure more voices are heard that support components that have been challenged in our current curriculum. A child's emotional and social development play a critical role in their health as an adult. As much as my family makes it a priority to ensure a healthy, safe, and positive emotional upbringing, we are also aware of the important role our schools play in their social and emotional development. The fact that we live in a district that attends to the social and emotional learning of our children is incredibly important from my perspective. I am grateful that we have sex education in our school system, ensuring our kids have a safe place to explore the complexities of their physical and emotional experiences at ages that make it more difficult to talk to mom and dad about, even if it is all required by state law. I'm increasingly grateful that BBH Pride has an opportunity to grow in this community, ensuring our kids a safe community space when that safety is increasingly threatened. Also important is the choice parents get to make when their kids regarding this curriculum. While we find the curriculum to be an appropriate fit for our family, I accept that others do not see it the same. The fact that our district offers people the choice to opt out is equally as important as my child's ability to access this curriculum. You all have worked diligently to consult with your attorneys to establish policies that are compliant with the law while giving families the necessary flexibility they need, all while working to maintain the physical and psychological safety of the students. You have done this within the purview of the board and by ensuring to hire and support administrators that understand the importance of providing necessary total school experience. Now, I'll be the first to admit this system isn't perfect. There are many opportunities to improve. One area of improvement pertains to the information provided to families regarding the philosophy and implementation of curriculum, an area many, I think, agree on. One specific example is our reading curriculum. We have both Fontes and Pinnell and iReady referenced on our website. On the surface, these conflict with each other. And accessing our literacy statement isn't a simple process if you don't know what you're looking for. This can pose a challenge for new parents in the district. Simply said, the system isn't perfect, but we can always improve. So I encourage you all to continue supporting administrators that understand the importance of this curriculum, ensuring those who participate get the most out of it, while maintaining the flexibility for others who don't want to and taking the necessary actions to address their concerns. All while working to improve and help parents understand what is and isn't done in our district so we continue to make the best decisions for our families.
Thank you for your comments.
John Simonoski, sorry.
Hello, I'm John Simonoski, 6016 Millwood Drive, Broadview Heights. Last time we were here, we were told that your children will be gay, your children will be trans, and that this is the way society is going. And if we don't get on board, basically, that at this activist group preaches, we will essentially be letting our children die. Not only was this morally wrong, but the fact that the graves of children were used as a platform to promote the ideology is disgusting. 60 years ago, Jim Crow was the way society was going. 90 years ago, eugenics was the way society was going. 100 years ago, it looked like only white men would be able to vote. Just because, and those are, by the way, things I learned here at BBH. Luckily, just because there is social contagion and momentum in one direction doesn't mean that it's right or good or permanent. Good will prevail as long as people stand against what is wrong. To cut to the chase, all this has to do with BBH Pride, targeting children with their school condoned Pride Fest. We saw last month how parents came and showed their disgust of what is happening. It wasn't enough to ask, why are adults so concerned with the sex lives of minors or what is going on under their clothes? But the only way to challenge the event was to find a technicality in the policy that was broken, to differentiate it from something like Pickle Fest. First of all, this is nothing like Pickle Fest. Secondly, we found that violation. BBH Pride wrote in Brexville magazine that University Hospital will be there providing and promoting gender-affirming care. This promotion of violence goes directly against policy. Now, for those confused by those words, gender-affirming care towards minors is a convenient way of saying hormone therapy, sterilization, and permanent mutilation. Something that has been banned in 15 states all across Europe and is currently being discussed in London. When we brought this to the board, we were assured that it's good, something that needs to be taken seriously. I myself was even providing information on how it was submitted to be voted on. Unfortunately, later that weekend, I later received a call saying, legal said to the board, just stay the course and ignore it. That pursuing this would just cost taxpayer dollars and will look bad. I was recommended that I should ask them nicely to not bring University Hospital, to essentially beg them not to mutilate children. Did we vote for the board or did we vote for the lawyers? I'm sorry, but this is a failure of the highest order to protect children. I will finish off by saying we hope and pray for courage for our new superintendent to bring accountability to this board with the right thing in the future. Remember that the children's future is the highest priority. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Chase Conklin.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Chase Conklin. I reside in Beechwood, but I'm here on behalf of Congressman Max Miller. We're going around to all the different city council meetings, all the school board meetings, and trying to make sure that people have a face for somebody in the district. I am Max Miller's field representative. I mainly focus in Cuyahoga County. If you guys need anything from the school board, or if the school board needs anything, or any citizens need anything, please reach out to us. All of our contact info is on our website. We also have an office in Parma on Ridge Road. It's the Parks and Rec building with law offices above it. We also have a office in Medina Square, whatever's closer to you guys. Also, I have business cards. If the school board or any citizens or constituents would like one, please take one after the meeting. Also, I want to plug that we have mobile office hours coming up for those that can't make it into our office. If it's further away from you than it should be, we're starting to do satellite office hours, mobile office hours, where we're reaching out into different parts of the community. Our next one is going to be May 31st from 11 to 3 p.m. in Solon Library. And we'll have more as time comes. Our last one was down in Dalton because we don't really have an office down that way. But if anybody needs anything, please reach out to us. The congressman is here for you. He's here to assist you in any way. If you guys have casework, our district office is great with casework. If you need help with passports, immigration, veterans affairs stuff, social security issues, please reach out to us. We can open an inquiry and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
That was the last one.
Okay. Just one comment to clarify that the Pride Fest that's occurring at our middle school is in no way associated with the district. Are they using our property? Yes, they are. We have a policy that allows external groups to submit an application. And if they meet all the requirements, they're able to use the facility. So the comment was made that the school district condones Pride Fest. We have no association with Pride Fest. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. I know that that event is being promoted. It's their promotion material has children on it and it's at the middle school. You know, some of the literature appears to be branded as if it's from the district. It's not. So just please be aware, we have no association with the event. They are just using our facilities for our policy where they met all the requirements. Okay. Moving on to item 8, other board business. Item A, resolve to approve the board policy revisions as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do we want any commentary? I mean, this is the final reading. So we had a reading of this last
Correct.
month, last meeting, and you see a lot of policy changes, and most of this is, you know, as laws change, as court rulings come out, as things evolve, policies get refreshed and updated. And most of this reflects that to stay in compliance. Is that correct?
That's correct. Many of the changes are simply changes in wording and actually use of, we're just talking about the use of pronouns from he, she to them, or, you know, that's not related to gender identity, just making it inclusive of any individual that would be part of the policy.
It's simpler language.
Yes,
point.
it's simpler language.
I will note as well, we do have multiple sections of policy that address specific topics as well. So that what may read as a duplicate policy is just a similar policy in a different section of our policies.
Correct.
Right. Right. And we work with a policy. Are they considered a consulting company? Neola. They're an organization that helps districts. They guide districts on policy. And they offer many templates of policies that you can use and then customize to your own likings or use them. And so they provide a service to us as well as many other districts to refresh policies, to create new policies, to make sure they're in compliance. For instance, years ago, there was no such thing as drones. Now, a lot of districts have a policy on drones as well as many other things. So
But and I just in case anybody wants to go back and look at the meeting, this was on the agenda prior to the March meeting. So if anybody wants to go back and look at the whole discussion, you should look at the March meeting, not the April meeting.
right. Yeah, very good. Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item C, resolve to approve the Brecksville Broadview Heights High School graduating class of 2023 pending final verification of all state and local graduating requirements. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
Congratulations, class of 2020.
Yes, yes. Commencement is a week from this Saturday, right?
June
I
3rd.
hope those seniors enjoy they should be having practice and their barbecue and all of that coming up the next couple days. So
Absolutely. Good
enjoy it.
times. Yes. Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item E, resolve to accept the resignation of Joel Magyar effective end of business day on July 31st, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So I'll just make some comments, some brief comments. Joel's been with us 7 years, and we've certainly have moved the district forward a lot in the last 7 years. As you just heard in her prior comments, academically, we continue to be a top flight school district, not only in Northeast Ohio, but in Ohio and across the country. So we've continued our educational excellence. We've also had a number of important milestones over the last 7 years. We passed, and you were instrumental in helping us pass an operating levy, help pass a bond levy, and help oversee construction of our new elementary school. And one of your lasting legacies will most likely be the Home of a New Bee sign, which has really taken hold in our community. And I thought one of the precious things that I learned the other day as I was having an engagement texting with our new superintendent, Jeff Harrison, and he was here Monday night to have his contract approved with his family. And when he came home to his house in Medina, there was a Home of a New Bee sign in his yard. So I thought that was pretty special. So so we've done a lot, and I know you move on to the next chapter in Avon Lake. So, best of luck in Avon Lake, and thank you for all you've done for our district.
We all.
Yes, any comments,
Yeah.
questions?
I just want to, I've only been on the board a year and a half now, or not quite a year and a half. And I just want to thank you for everything you've taught me in that year and a half, for your service to the community, for who you are as an educator, and how you have always put kids at the center of your decisions. So wish you the best of luck at Avon Lake and as you move forward in your career.
And I don't have anything prepared, but I will be between now and July 31st.
Not much more beyond what Mark had shared. My daughter will be a kindergartner this year, so I'm really hope, Jeff, if you're out there listening and keep going with the Home of the New Bee. I know I would personally really appreciate it, and I know it's something that our community has really grown to love about our district. There has been a lot of, for lack of a better phrase, skilled sailors aren't built at port. And we have been through a lot. We've been through a lot as a community. You navigated COVID. You helped us build buildings. You helped us move forward academically. And so for that, I will be grateful. So thank you.
And I know your new treasurer is not as cool as I am, so I will miss you. Okay, good.
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item 9, superintendent's other business. Item A, resolve to approve the school resource officer MOU as attached. Item B, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 STEPS Educational Group Service Contract as attached. Item C, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 Cleveland Clinic Learner School for Autism Agreement as attached. Item D, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 ABA Outreach Services Agreement as attached. Item E, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 Proactive Behavior Services Agreement as attached. Item F, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 Suburban School Transportation Agreement as attached. Item G, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 United Cerebral Palsy Association Agreement as attached. Item H, resolve to authorize the advertisement of bid specifications for high school roof replacement, Section 11 shingles, bid estimate $635,000. Item I, resolve to approve superintendent's other business items A through H. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Joelle, do you want to walk us through these?
No, but.
Okay.
So the SRO MOU is through the city of Broadview Heights. They are providing the SRO at the middle school this year. So this is just outlining the terms and conditions of having the SRO at the middle school as well as the high school. The items B, C, D, and E are all agreements we have with outside organizations for specific kids and some of our therapy people that we have in district. Item F is a contract with Suburban Transportation for just in case we do transport using private transportation, some of our special needs kids to outside organizations for their education. And so that is if we need them for next year. Same with the United Cerebral Palsy Association. It's for a specific student. And high school roof replacement is just to authorize to go out for bid to replace the section of roof that you had mentioned earlier in the resolution.
The bid for the roofing work, is that intended to happen this summer?
It is.
Okay.
So it will hit the docket tomorrow in the advertisement, as long as that would be approved. And then it'll be out for 2 weeks, and then hopefully they can do it this summer.
Okay, great.
What's the scope of what's included?
So it's the whole large shingled section. It's an area of the building that needs to have students not in session when they're doing that, but they're basically just replacing the shingled roof of the entire high school. So it's a large section, which was originally, if you go back to that meeting, it was estimated at over $2 million. With our new facilities and safety, Brian Koss, he has gotten some other quotes already, like preliminary quotes. So that's why we think we can do it and get it in the summer. And there are some leaks, and the longer we wait, if we wait till next summer, it's going to potentially cost more.
Okay.
The scope is in there.
Yes. Yeah. So it shows the sections.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Roll call.
Okay, Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item 10A, resolve to approve certified personnel recommendations. Item B, resolve to approve classified personnel recommendations. Item C, resolve to approve superintendent's consent items A through B. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on any of the recommendations? There's a lot of contracts in there. It's just standard procedure when limited contracts are up, just to have them renewed. So
Craig, can you pull them up? Let's
Sure.
just so make sure everybody, then that way people at home too can see what we're looking for. These are, every month we get these types of recommendations. It's kind of the normal churn of employment in a district.
And there's no reductions. This is all summer and
I just like to,
regular contract going.
I just like to wish, Mrs. Firestone and Mrs. Wardle, best of luck in their retirement. Both were here when I was in school, so they are, I think, long overdue for their retirement. So I'm very, very excited.
Yes, I was going to do the same.
Yeah, and I will third that because they both heard from me regarding my kids throughout their tenure. So best of luck to them in retirement.
So these are the classified ones. There we go. So those are the contract ones.
A lot of summer help, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Extended school year.
And then our extended school year.
Mhm.
Summer. Resignations and retirement.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item E, resolve to approve supplemental personnel recommendations. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
You want to pull that up? There's not much on there. I think
There's
only
just two,
two.
just from the spring play choreography.
Okay, any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item 11, Treasurer's Consent Agenda. Item A, resolve to approve the financial reports as attached. Item B, resolve to accept donations as presented. Item C, resolve to approve the minutes from the April 26, 2023 regular board meeting and the special board meetings held on May 1st, 8th, and 9th, 2023. Item D,
Sorry.
resolve to approve the updated 5-year forecast as attached. Item E, resolve to approve a 1-year agreement with JC Power Strategic Communications as submitted. Item F, resolve to approve the 1-year contract renewal with Edutech as submitted. Item G, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 student fees as attached. Item H, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 Connect service contract as attached. Item I, resolve to approve the 2023-2024 Stepping Stone preschool tuition rate of $1,700. Item J, resolve to approve treasurer's consent items A through I. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right,
All
Greg,
right.
you're on.
Okay. I know everyone's favorite topic. It is your new favorite topic. I know. I don't know why this gets so goofy. I need to go. Is it in here? Maybe that's why it has to be in here. There we go.
Yeah, you need to zoom out on the frame of the Adobe.
There we go. It's like different than the other one, but okay. So we do have our month of April, which is the part that is being presented this month. So on the revenue side, we did get our homestead rollback. Sorry, it got moved. Last year we got it in April. This year we got it in May. So you'll see I had to move that from last month over to the May column. So our homestead rollback just came in May, but this is presenting for the April financials. So you can see the total amount of money we received in was only $588,000. And then on the expenditure side, we spent $4 million. So for the month, we lost $3.4 million. Again, that's always by flow of our tax revenues that come in. When we look at some of those key indicators, see, now I can't make it go back out until I go like that, whatever. Let me move that over there. So when we compare the revenues from April of last year of 22 to April of this year, that's why you see that large increase. Like we received a ton more money last year in April, and that's the $2 million that was basically allocated for our homestead and rollback as it's related to our property taxes. And then on the expenditure side, we basically were a little bit up, and the overall difference of that was a combination of $168,000 more this year, which was accounted for between salaries, purchase services, and supplies. So again, we've done a good job of controlling our costs overall, given all those three categories. So it looks like we have our ending cash balance will be around $1,023,000. In addition, sorry, so that'll take our ending cash balance for the year to $23,728,837. And then, oh, that got cut off a little bit. As we compare revenues from this year to last year, again, you'll see that the revenues are higher, and that's again because the homestead and rollback. The blue is this year. And then on the expenditure side, we have the expenditures trending just a little bit up higher from last year. But again, we've got inflation, we've got wage increases and things like that that are obviously why it's a little bit higher than it is normally. And we'll kind of talk more about this as we get into the forecast. So that's the financial report. We did receive some nice generous donations. The middle school auditorium renovation project is actually kicking off next week. So we just met with them today, and they are going to start removing seats next Tuesday out of the auditorium space. And that is thanks to the generous donation of the middle school PSO, which we just got a check for $120,000. Turfscapes has done some landscape redesign, which is a value really of about $12,000 to $13,000. They redid that at the high school, I think, right? And then also Progressive Insurance, and then also $1,500 towards the sound system for the softball field. We do have all of the minutes from all of our meetings. Let's talk about 5-year forecast. So that is this one. So again, oh, did I upload the wrong one? Oopsies. That's not good. Let's do, well, I can change that, I guess. I need to upload the right one. This is the overall forecast. So I must have selected the wrong one. Actually, I'm just going to go and grab it. So let's do this. Sorry.
Do you want to make the video bigger of us so you're not showing your, I don't know if you're,
Well, I can, yeah, I can.
give any secrets away as you.
No, not really. No. Just the people in the room. I'll stop the screen share. Forecast. Here we go. Okay, so let's go back to. Okay, so this is just the update from what we saw last November as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. So again, this is basically what is a forecast, and it's a specific snapshot in time. It obviously can change by the day as we're finalizing some staffing decisions currently. So it literally can change very quickly after it's published. The assumptions are laid out in the presentation. They don't represent that baseline as we go into negotiations, which actually starts next spring for us as our collective bargaining agreements will expire in a year. We continue to monitor the financial situation of what seems to be our post-pandemic era. We still have inflation that we're monitoring, although trying to navigate those waters the best we can. But again, we're still trying to navigate those waters and the economic factors that we're dealing with. The forecast does include potential revenues regarding the Sherwin-Williams and Valor Acres TIF. This has been updated as of April of 2023. So we kind of threw that number in here at the last forecast. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the slides. The next slide shows again that the state continues to not be an equal partner in our funding model. So the red lines that you see is the amount of money we receive from the state, and the blue is the amount of money we receive basically from our local taxpayers in Class 1 and Class 2 properties, as well as our state reimbursement of homestead and rollback. So just demonstrating that that is the funding situation that we currently deal with. And we are at least slated with the current legislature. Again, I could not plug any of those numbers in. We don't know how the legislature is going in terms of fair school funding. It does look like it's going to be in, and it looks like the trade-off is going to be we're going to fund fair school funding, but we're going to expand vouchers. And so that's like the trade-off they're making legislatively. But again, I can't really predict too much until June 30th when that bill will eventually get passed. As we look at our general fund expenditures in fiscal 23, you can see that 87% of what we do is actually built into people and staff. So it's salaries and benefits, which account for that 87.1%. This is
Sorry, can you make that just a little bigger?
Yes. Is that better? Yeah. So it is a 0.4% decrease from the November forecast as we kind of shored up all of our stuff with grant funding as well as the staffing changes that we made, even though we had some increases. We were able to also offset some grant funding. So it's actually a decrease a little bit by 0.4%. So that kind of shows how we spend our money as a district. And again, 87% is in staffing and salaries and benefits. Our ending cash balance is projected here throughout the life of the forecast. So on the far left, it is the actual of 18. What we're talking about right now is this column here in the middle, which is fiscal 23. So you can see we do have a high balance. However, that is going to continue to decline through projections that we have put into the forecast that show the declining cash balance. The orange line that you see on there is actually what is considered our 60 days of cash. The state doesn't require, but does recommend a minimum of 60 days of cash for any school district. And even at that point, because I've lived through that in a prior district, you will struggle to pay some of your bills where you have to hold vendor checks and things like that because you have to wait for some of your money to come in. So we don't want to get too close to that orange line, to be quite honest. So that kind of just shows you how we're getting closer and closer a little bit to that orange line over time. And we'll continue to update this, as we go out. I mean, we're projecting 4 years out from where we are. So a lot of things can obviously change. Fiscal 23 is projected to put us at 162 days of true cash, which is up 4 days from November. And then in fiscal 27, it's projected to be 99 days of cash, which is up also 11 from November. And we'll talk about a little bit why when we get to those pieces. Did you have a question?
No, you just answered it.
Okay. So this is our keep it simple statement. So on the upper right is basically where we were at in November. So we were basically sitting in fiscal 27. We were still deficit spending. We were still deficit spending in fiscal 27 in both scenarios, but we were deficit spending a little bit less actually at that time. So where we are today is overall, I think a little bit better because it does show our cash position is a little under $2 million as to the positive from where we were in November. However, that is basically attributed to the fact that we're going to end at a higher cash balance this year. And so as that money would carry through the forecast, it actually shows a positive at the end of 27. However, the thing to note in this forecast, though, is that fiscal 27 does have a larger deficit of that year than it did back in November. And part of that is due to especially some rising costs of healthcare that we're seeing. Since I've been here, we've not seen an increase the way we're going to probably see one here in the next 2 months. I'll find out in June that we're looking at anywhere from an 11 to 12% increase, most likely in healthcare costs. So as that carries throughout the forecast, that is making a difference later on. So overall, the picture is a little bit better in fiscal 27, but that's due to what's going on right now here today. So that's kind of the key note. But in 27, we are technically deficit spending more in this current update than we were in November. So it's just something we have to keep an eye on as we kind of move through.
What's behind the additional healthcare costs, do you think?
So what happened was during COVID, we had a lot of people who took off elective surgeries and all kinds of things were pushed off. People didn't go see their regular PCPs. And so we actually banked up some good money at that time as a consortium. And so there was millions of dollars that we were almost like saving. And then as we kind of came out of COVID, what happened was that's all flipped. So we took a 6.6% increase this year. We saw a little bit coming. So we took I think the year before was a 2%, sorry. And then we took a 6.6 and then it's just continued to get worse and worse. So people are continuing to seek their elective surgeries are coming back. They've also, from the consortium standpoint, have done some progressive things with gene therapy. So some of those costs will start to hit us on a higher level. And by gene therapy, what's happening is that you can have a patient who is, has almost an incurable disease that over the life of that disease would cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. So the consortium did elect to look at some gene therapies that have been approved by the FDA that they can do one dose of a $2 million treatment and then the person is considered to be cured. So those types of therapies are not, they hit the medical insurance side of this, not the prescription side of this, because it's actually a medical procedure to do the gene therapy. And so we do have a couple of cases in our consortium that are starting to utilize some of those things. The thought process, though, is that in the long run, it's actually going to save the consortium money because the research behind it and the FDA approval is indicating that it is actually a cure, but some of that stuff is hitting us now. And we don't pay the full $2 million because we have some other things in place, but it's still a very expensive treatment option that's available to some of our members. And that's not just Brecksville, Broadview Heights. We belong to Suburban Healthcare Consortium, which is 20 school districts in Northeast Ohio. So it's a large pool of people that are involved in this. So we've done our best in controlling supplies, purchase services, but still at the end of this, a lot of those are actually driven by healthcare costs or what's in there and what's making it kind of worse towards the end on a deficit side for the year, but not necessarily on a 5-year forecast level. Okay. This also kind of shows the estimated millage that would be required here just as a point of reference. So to cover that $3.8 million deficit in fiscal 27, it would require a 2.6 mil levy at that time. So again, we're still sitting at about $16 million in this scenario in year 27, fiscal year 27, which again, as costs continue to rise, the other piece of this is that 60 day, that if you look back at the other slide, that 60 days is actually, it's creeping up because our costs per month are still rising. So even at $16 million, people think that's a lot of money, but you know, for us, it doesn't really go that long of a way when you factor in all of the salaries, benefits, purchase services, and supplies. Yes.
Is your little arrow about the estimated millage is pointing at those 4 columns? Are you saying?
It's to cover this exact number. $3.8 million would be 2.67 mils to cover it and just make it 0.
For fiscal year 2027?
Correct. Yes. So general comments, which include the talking about the TIF, is that this year we did incur additional staffing due to the enrollment at the elementary school. The staffing is expected to remain now throughout the life of the forecast. We know we do have some higher class sizes down at the elementary school. So that staffing has been projected throughout the 5 years at this point. We will continue to monitor House Bill 126 implications. We talked about this not too long ago, where we will have a report, hopefully actually within the next several months, probably going into the fall, about some of our implications that have happened from the inability to challenge property tax revenues. So we will have that conversation and hopefully have some good numbers to share in terms of how much revenue we've lost. As it comes to the TIF, we actually factored in some money if you go back to November. And so that does not seem like it's going to happen at this time in fiscal 23. So I did inquire with the way that our TIF is set up is that the city will receive that money from the state, and then we would receive that money from the city. I inquired with the city. It is no fault of theirs. They said that this is actually currently being held up at the state level. And so we're trying to look into see maybe why or how long it's going to be. Hopefully it's not stuck on someone's desk. So we have kind of moved some of this, some of these projections out. One of the people that I consult with on the forecast actually lives in a district where they've done a lot of TIFs. His recommendation is that this is very normal actually, in that when you're dealing with TIFs, you will eventually get all of the money, but sometimes they're delayed anywhere from 2 to 3 years. So that's not necessarily good news. The good news is, though, he did say that you will eventually get all of the money. It's just that a lot of times they're delayed, and that is like the usual when it comes to any type of TIF. And he's done like, I think 4 or 5 in his district.
So the money has to flow through the state,
It
then
does.
the city?
Correct. Well, it comes from the approval comes from the state, and then the money goes to the city, and then it would be sent to us from the city is how it's set up to be.
Okay. So TIF is tax increment financing, and we're talking about the development at Valor Acres.
Yep.
Right. So the district will receive funds, tax funds from that development, and the further along it goes, the more valuation is created, and then the more revenue would stream our way. So those, you don't have years on those numbers.
Yeah,
So
so
that's
this is 0 is
FY
23, 24, 25, 26, 27.
okay. And that's what's plugged into this forecast?
That's what's
right now?
currently plugged into this forecast, yes. And so the other thing is that like the part of the TIF that's coming in is actually going to be what's the land value the change in land value, and then the actual residential piece of this will actually be reflected in a different spot on the forecast, which will be the actual property taxes. So there's almost like two parts to the TIF when this is fully implemented. So this is the amount of land value that has been factored in to the forecast. And again, it's been kind of delayed and pushed back because of we haven't gotten, and we're not going to get it at this point for this fiscal year. We're hoping that next year we'll start to see some of that funnel in, but
So-
we'll keep checking on it.
But there is, I mean, us trying to look ahead, there is a chance that that zero stays zero even next year
Yes,
or the year after.
yes.
So,
Maybe we'll call Matt Miller's office.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, Max.
because that's.
Sorry, Max.
And I would just add to that, we entered into this TIF, it's been over 2.5 years
Right.
now. So even at the delay, it's really delayed because everything was processed before there was even a shovel in the ground at
Right.
Valor Acres. So it's been a point of frustration for us to try to follow up and watch how this process has gone. But it is significantly longer, even with a 2 to 3 year delay, we're already there.
Mhm.
So is the delay, is it impacting how much money we're going to receive? Or is it just impacting the timeline on when we receive the money? So when we say, oh, it could be a zero next year, it could be a zero after that. Does that just mean it's being bundled up and it's coming our way eventually? Are you saying,
From what Todd is the other forecaster who was looking at this. What he said was that you will eventually get all of what you were owed from the beginning. So it will all come in. It's just going to be
Deferred.
delayed and deferred
yeah,
until they get all of their maybe ducks in a row. I don't know. We're trying to figure out what agency really does this go through because we don't even know at this point. So
Okay.
I've been working with Laura at the city, but that's what she's been told so far. It's just not approved at the state level. And until that happens, there's nothing else we can do. So that's where we are. Overall, though, BBH remains in a financially stable position, but that is due to our current cash balance. Deficit spending is on the horizon, and that quickly compounds. As you can see, it works in both directions. So when you have that, when you're not running a deficit, it carries through the forecast. When you're running a deficit, it carries through the forecast. And so as soon as we start hitting deficit spending, that's when we really have to obviously either tighten our belts or look for more revenue. Those are the only two options we have as a district. So our options are limited. And once we start down that path, it just continues. So if you're $300,000 to the deficit, you already start the next year $300,000, and then you're going to be another. So it becomes 600 and it just starts to pile up. So that's why it compounds to the $3.8 million at the end of that. And so we'll just keep everyone posted as we kind of go through. So we are keeping a careful watch, a potential levy cycle in terms of keeping the board apprised of things. I would say at this point, and again, this will always get modified based on the current conditions. I would say somewhere in 2026, which would actually be looking at taxation or levy that would start not till 27. Could we push that out? We'll have to see as we go, year by year. That can change in a year or so easily. The things that will also affect the levy cycle moving forward is, of course, inflation. We are starting to see that in many areas, state funding, the new budget bill, which will be coming by June 30th. Again, more unfunded mandates. We don't know if they're coming. Vouchers could eventually affect this district. Right now, they don't. But we have dyslexia training that has been very expensive that we're funding and doing the best we can with grants. We had preschool regulations that changed that have altered our forecast. And then, of course, enrollment as well. So we're going to keep an eye on all of those things as we move forward and, kind of keep the board apprised of at least what the recommendation would be to then eventually look for either new money or reductions.
I have
Yes.
a question. You're recommending a levy in 2026. But what if we put something on the ballot and it doesn't pass?
Well, that's honestly why I would probably choose 2026, because I don't think that you're not at a fiscal cliff yet. And you give yourself a little bit of runway. The downside of waiting too long is you could put all your eggs in one basket, and if it doesn't go, then you can start down a bad path. And I don't think we want to get there. The other thing too is that the state is going to become increasingly more diligent with. I'm actually going to be doing a presentation with them in July of how people get into fiscal emergency. And I'm not saying that we're going to get there, but they're sending letters now based on if you're starting to deficit spend. So they're looking at total cash balance, but they're also looking at schools that are just deficit spending. And so after you've deficit spent for 3 years, they're going to look at sending letters out to schools so that they're going to try to force your hand to react in some way. You're either going to reduce and have a plan, or you're going to look at a levy cycle. So
Okay, so your recommendation of 2026 is
It's a
you're
little-
factoring in a potential.
correct.
loss.
Yes, I would say so.
If I could maybe just soften that language a little bit. You're not recommending.
No, not at this time.
You're saying the trend line right now, if everything stayed the same, which we know it changes,
Yes.
that if this all played out exactly the way the forecast had it, we'd be looking at probably at a potential levy in 2026. So,
Yes.
and just to remind everybody, you know, these 5-year forecasts get updated twice a year, so every 6 months. There are things the district can control, and that is primarily expenses. We can control expenses. That's the main lever in this game that we're playing. Revenue, we cannot generate new revenue without the voters. The voters would need to approve additional funds to come into our district. So we can't really affect the revenue side without the taxpayers. We can only affect the expenditure side. And another piece of the pie on the revenue side comes from the state. And that also we don't control, because you see various House bills and legislative events coming out of Columbus, and some of them have detrimental effects on our district. Some of them can be on the revenue side. Talk about fair funding, and we've talked about some other things, as well as on the expenditure side, those unfunded mandates. So if the state says, hey, we want to mandate, for instance, and they didn't do this, but all districts must provide all-day kindergarten. They haven't done that, but if they did that and said, but we're not going to give you any money, that would be an unfunded mandate for all districts to then have to provide all-day kindergarten and absorb all the costs and pass it on to their taxpayers. So those types of unfunded mandates also pop up out of Columbus, which makes these 5-year forecasts every 6 months have some swings in them from one side to the other, because things change, as well as things like the pandemic, as well as inflation, right? So healthcare costs are 6% and then they're 12%. So there's a lot of moving parts in this, which is why we review it every 6 months, and all districts have to review it every 6 months. But it's a planning tool also. So we're okay now, we're stable, but we also can look to say, hey, if we want to push out the next operating levy a little further, you might start 3 years in advance making some strategic reductions, because if you saved $300,000 tomorrow, 3 years from now, that's $900,000, because it compounds $300,000 each year. So then that has a $900,000 impact on the cash balance and on the budget. So there are things you can do, and that's why it's important to keep reviewing this 5-year forecast every 6 months. But, you know, for us right now, we're in a stable position. So we're not, I just don't want there to be like, you know, conversation like, hey, we're going to be on the ballot with a levy in 3 years. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. It's a little too early.
Yeah, no, I would agree with all of that.
Which I just do want to add to something that Mark just said. I mean, this is very indirect, obviously, but I mean, yes, we can't really control our revenues. However, we can, the revenue that we get from the state is typically awarded by our legislators. And I'm going to suggest that people research who they vote for, because different people who run for office are going to have different views on, you know, what, you know, school funding is. You know, there's a lot of people down there right now who are trying to take away our school funding. So I'm just going to suggest that is one way that you can, you know, help with the revenue that we come in, is research who you vote for in November.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just to piggyback onto that, because there is a school board election coming up in November, and your local school board members also may have a philosophy that you may agree with or disagree with from a financial standpoint. So, you know, fiscally, you know, since I've been on the board, fiscal responsibility has been at the top of my list, and trying to ensure that we always are as careful as possible with the precious limited tax dollars that we have. And so both at the local level and at the state level, politicians and people that you vote into office can impact the financial health of our district. So do your homework when you vote. Any other questions or comments? Roll call.
Oh, I was
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah,
I've got more than this. Oh my gosh. I got lost
In the consent agenda.
No, this is just a one-year renewal for our communication services with JC Power. Another thing with EduTech for educational or technology services for 1 year. Student fees, for the most part, are remaining the same. I will pop these up here real quick for high school, middle school, and elementary school. There were a couple of modifications, nothing major at all, but these are all the new fees for next year. So high school general fees and tech fees are staying the same. Parking is going from 50 to 60, which then half of that is for people who are at CDCC. Instrument rentals are going from $40 to $50 per instrument. Middle school, I believe, is going from 45 to 50 for the general fee. Tech fee is the same. Instrument rental stays the same. And then elementary school, we're doing a little bit of a restructure. So the overall fee is not increasing. 5th grade is where Chromebooks are being sent home with students. And so we're keeping the tech fee at 30 and the general fee will stay at 45. Because the other grade levels don't take them home, we don't have as much for repair and insurance claims. So we are just restructuring that. So it'll be $55 for the actual general fee to help with supplies for the students, and then only $20 for the tech fee. So those are the major changes that are listed there. So not too much as we head into 23-24.
Can I make a comment? Just because I know, because I hear from a lot of stakeholders regarding our fees, and some of they're very small, but there is an increase. And if you could talk, I mean, just because I know that people will email and want to know why even for $10 we've increased the instrument rental. Can you kind of talk about why that is and how, we're responsible for the upkeep? We're renting out our own versus parents having to, am I correct? Parents having to rent from a third party. So
especially some of the bigger things. I think on any of the general fee piece of it, we're just trying to smooth out those flows. I mean, obviously with inflation, I mean, a case of paper used to cost $25 and now we're paying $45. And that's with consortium pricing and different things. So paper costs have been astronomical for school districts. On the instrument rental piece of this, a couple of years ago, before this was, we kind of revamped this last year when it was $40. And the goal was, because the district owns these instruments, and we repaired those instruments. We tuned those instruments, we repaired them over the summer and whatnot. So we're now tracking all of those expenditures of how much it costs to repair the instruments. And when we had it at $40 for this year, as we compared that data of how much money we received in revenue at the $40 and how much we're spending out on repairs, and that's just for a net even, we were deficit spending basically. So the $40 was not enough to cover that. Had conversations with the high school especially, and also with Mr. Cochiola about this. And typically a parent is paying more than $50 a month for some of these things. That's a flat fee. So it's $50 for the year per instrument. So if they do 2, it's 100 or whatever. But if they're doing that from an instrument rental place, it's somewhere between $50 and $80, I think is what he said, per month for a family. So it's still far cheaper to do it through the school. We're hoping that next year when we do that same analysis, that it kind of comes out to a net zero, because we're not looking to make money on it. We're just looking to make sure we cover our costs for instrument repairs and also replacement too. So we do use some of that money for replacement when the instruments need to be refreshed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Connect service contract, that's our ITC. One of the things I had explained to the board in an update was just that they are doing some major infrastructure upgrades. So we do have a $40,000 increased cost next year as they pass that along to all of their districts. Other than that, everything's mostly the same. But they're upgrading infrastructure, cyber, things like that on their end to help out school districts. So all the school districts are contributing for next year in our services with Connect, because they provide our internet, they do our firewall and things like that for the district. So that's included in that 1 year upgrade or contract, sorry. And then tuition for preschool, similar to how we did for kindergarten. We're moving this $200 from $1,500 to $1,700. I don't even remember the last time it was updated. So it's been before you. So it's been over 7 years, I guess, since that fee has been adjusted again. I don't want to say inflation, but I mean, we did the same thing for kindergarten and our costs continue to rise. So for that program. This is for the peer tuition rate. So obviously our special ed children do not pay for that program. So this is for peer tuition rate for next year. It'll go up $200.
And this is it's a subsidized tuition, right? I mean, that doesn't reflect the full
The
cost
cost.
to
Oh, gosh, no.
provide
No.
preschool. So, the district is paying the majority of the cost, and this is
Correct.
the parents' portion. So small uptick, meaningful, but
Well, and under the new guidelines, because we've had to hire, what is it, 2, 3 staff members, I think. I mean, it's still way under,
right.
from what we actually, what
It's
the
the
cost.
best deal on the block too, in terms of preschool, in terms of services that our preschool is able to provide. And just in general, preschool is running, average around $3,000 a year. So this is about half the cost, and great with our teachers to have the typical peers with our teachers before they would start kindergarten. So just a great program, great for the community.
And that's it. Now it'll be the roll call.
Now you can.
What questions or comments? Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman.
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, motion carries 4-0. Item 12A, announcements. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for June 28th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Item B, resolve to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yes.
Ms. Kwiatkowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Wigman.
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, that concludes our meeting. Everyone.